Okay, let's go back to the trade deficit now and what caught many economists by surprise. Diana Furchtgott-Roth is director of Manhattan Institute's economics21.org and is a former chief economist of the U.S. Labor Department, and she joins us now by phone. She is also the author of the upcoming book, Disinherited. Diana, welcome to Arise Exchange.
It's great to be with you. Arise is the best.
Well, appreciate hearing that. Thank you so much. Come back anytime once you say that. Let's start with basics of what happened here and why this big imbalance of so many more imports than exports.
Well, the trade data came out today, and it showed that imports had increased, and exports hadn't increased as much as people had thought. So the trade deficit jumped to $51 billion in March, which is the largest since October 2008. And the way GDP figures are measured, that means that GDP growth in the first quarter will go from up 0.2% to down 0.4%.
And we'll have to obviously factor that in as one of the key reasons when we look at GDP. It doesn't necessarily say that the U.S. economy was even worse than expected. But let me ask you about the core reasons for this dramatic imbalance in the trade deficit. Was it what's going on in the West Coast ports? Was it the strength of the dollar?
Well, it was probably some of each, but I should first say that this is nothing to worry about. Imports, the increase in imports just means that we are doing better than the rest of the world, and that we wanted to buy more goods from the rest of the world. It's as though you went shopping at Bloomingdale's or Macy's, and you bought a lot of things, and, you paid for them. You paid for them with money. And that's fine. It just shows how well you are doing. The thing that's wrong is these GDP figures and the artificial notion that our trade deficit, our trade should always be in balance. The fact that we are doing better, our GDP is growing about 2%, Europe is growing about 1%, China and India slowing down. The fact that we can import more because of our strong dollar is something positive. It's not negative.
What does that do? It's good for consumers, but it's not necessarily good for businesses that are in the exporting arena, including manufacturing, right? When you're talking about auto manufacturers, for example, this is not necessarily a good report for them.
Right. Well, the strong dollar does mean that their exports become more expensive. So this is not necessarily good for them. It's good for consumers, but it's not necessarily good for exporters. Part of the reason for the big jump in March was the slowdown at the West Coast ports. I don't know if you remember, but a lot of goods that importers had wanted to buy to be on the shelves for Christmas couldn't be purchased because of that slowdown and the disruptions. So when the slowdowns were over, when the union had negotiated its contract, then these goods started coming in March.
So maybe to some extent these trade deficit numbers were artificially incorrect in the first place because of a one-time event with this port situation.
That's correct, yes. And a lot of people think that the economy is growing in a positive direction. It's not shrinking. So the 0.4% is more of a measurement issue. The negative 0.4 percentage point that it's going to shrink in the first quarter is more of a problem with measurement. Economists aren't very good at these measurement issues, as John Tamny has pointed out in his new book, Popular Economics. So in the first quarter, government spending shrank. That meant GDP was smaller, but really that means that normal businesses have more to spend because there's less government borrowing, so that's not necessarily a negative. So all of you out there should take with a big grain of salt these GDP numbers. You need to look below the big headline number. And I don't think that the trade numbers that came out this morning were really that bad.
Diana Furchtgott-Roth from the Manhattan Institute. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Great to be with you.
And coming up, New York's mayor found out that the subways don't always run on time. What New York Mayor Bill de Blasio did next, however, makes him our favorite person of the day.